So we're getting ready to enter the dungeon together, whether it's Descent, Hero Quest, or some other type of dungeon crawling type game. Dungeon Saga. If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know I love dungeon crawling type games. And I wanted to kind of push out like a community checklist, just kind of building some points, some tactica points to keep in mind as we go through the dungeon without getting into like a specific type system. This is especially important because a lot of dungeon crawlers are either full co-op or one versus many. I'm going to be the overlord, and I'm going to do my best to beat on all four of you and see what happens. And in these type of games, I mean in general, but in these types of games, I am a firm believer in that you have your character, your actor, your hero, your champion. You're in charge. I'm not going to kingmake. I'm not going to metagame. I'm not going to just tell you what to do and dominate. Like, no, you make your own decisions. And I try to be very conscious of that fact. I try to be very conscious of like, you know, this is not me playing. We're all playing to have a good time. You might have different ideas, different tactica. Maybe they're good. Maybe they're not so good. Like, it's all good. We're going to play it. But I do believe in kind of sitting down a little bit before the turn or as things happens and saying, hey, what do you guys think? Like, is there something we should be doing, or is this a good idea? But ultimately, I'm not going to override and play your character. So I feel like it's important to mention that flavor, that piece, because now as we move into the building the checklist, it could be misinterpreted as like, you know, I'm going to kingmake and I'm just going to metagame and tell you what to do. So the first question is the game on a timer or not? And I'm going to use a couple of systems to showcase examples. Dungeon Saga is a timer. You have to complete the mission objectives before time runs out. Something like Descent, 2nd edition, soon to be 3rd edition. Maybe there's a timer. Often there's a timer. You know, the goblins are going to run up, steal the farmer's food, and run off. And I can probably steal one a turn. So you know you have 4 or 5 turns, maybe 6 turns if you stop me one. Or we look at a game like Hero Quest. There is no timer. If there's a timer, then we really need to keep moving through the dungeon. And the overall aspect, and you know, we can debate whether timers are good or bad game design. I see what they try to do to create some tension, but sometimes it cuts down on the exploration. Yet at the same time, it gives the overlord a slight advantage because it's an invisible force that the players have to play against, and it's often something that they can't necessarily nullify because they're up against that timer. You know, you've got 6, 8, 10 turns to happen, or if I run out of cards, you lose. I mean, that type of aspect. So if there is a timer, we need to always be moving towards the end objective. And maybe that end objective is known, like in Descent. You know what's going on. You have the full map. Or maybe it's something we have to explore, like Dungeon Saga, where the dungeon's revealed as you go. And it's, you know, it's somewhere, but we have to find out just exactly where it is. So in that exploration, in that piece, being able to really, really accurately look at that. We need to keep going. If we need to keep going, I was going to name some names, some of my buddies who just kind of get out of control with loot. What that means with loot along the way, whether it's opening chests or loot drops, we're only literally going to be trying to pick up stuff that is not only on the way, but doesn't burn a turn to get. You know, if we enter the Great Hall in Dungeon Saga and there is a chest on the left side, but we're moving through the right, do you really have a turn to burn to pick up that chest? I mean, it adds up. There's also this idea of we don't want to separate with loot. So loot collection, getting items, we're going to move to push through. Second tactic, and this really should have been the first tactic, but timer depends on the game, sticking together. You need to stick together. I mean, that's like Dungeoneering 101. That's like D&D 101. I'm going to do my best as an overlord to divide you, to seduce you, to use certain aspects. You know, there's a lot of tactics to divide. Treasure might be one. There was one game with Descent. You know, Descent, the treasure is known, and one of the players broke off and went to actively pick up treasure. That's great, because now it was 2 heroes that I could gang up on, especially with my overlord cards and spawns and reinforcements, and then one that was kind of hanging out. I just ignored him. So we need to not, You don't want to divide the party. On a side note, as an overlord, I know we're supposed to be focusing on players, but the overlord in me is coming out. Using Dungeon Saga as an example, there's a banshee that you have to fight. She's pretty powerful, but she has a piece of the amulet that you need. And when she gets down to low enough health, I start running away. Because, yes, I'm going to try and punk one of the characters, but once I get low enough health, if I haven't killed one of the heroes or brought them down, I'm going to run away. I'm going to try and pull you because you need that treasure. You see it. I don't know how it's around her neck because she's like astral or something like that. But I don't know, I guess magic. Just blame it on magic. It's always magic. If I can pull you away. So we have to be careful about that. Likewise, looking at your characters, if there's a mix of range versus fighting, close combat, how do they overlap? Again, Dungeon Saga. The barbarian and the dwarf sticking together so they can affect their area of attack in that kind of corridor. Likewise, looking at the elf and the wizard, being able to overlap with magic and ranged. Very, very important. Sticking together as a group. Resources. Final piece for the checklist, and then I'm going to flip it over to you guys. Sometimes it's known that what the end boss is. You see that lieutenant dragon in the back. Other times it's hidden. You have an idea based on the dungeon and the story that you're in the Dwarf King's crypt. Probably at the end you're going to be facing that Dwarf King, but is it 3 rooms away, 4 rooms away, 5 rooms away because it's a hidden dungeon? Always being careful when to use your special powers. A lot of games have a one-time power, or if you push it and take fatigue, you can push a power. You don't want to blast out like in the beginning. You don't want to blast out in the middle. You want to save that power as best you can for the end. The only break in that, the only qualifier is if you're going to die and lose the mission or get knocked out of the game, blast the power off. Because maybe then you won't die, or if you do die, at least you did some alpha damage, at least you did some sort of strike. So those kind of 3 anchor points, those rules, as we're sitting down, that's what I try and keep in mind. That's what I try to make my decisions and my tactica on. But again, 100% exploring it from the perspective of this is a co-op game. This is a group game. We're playing together. We're going to work together. I don't want to control your figure. And I want to see what you come up with and what you can do in the game.